How do you pronounce it? Crayfish or crawfish?
Crayfish.
It's crawfish.
Really?
Crawfish? Crayfish? Crawdad.
Crawdad.
What's another one?
Mudbug.
Ditch bug.
Yabby.
Yabby?
That's
Never heard of that one. Freshwater lobster.
mountain lobster.
I can't think of any others. Are there any others? Crawdad. Guys,
I know.
what we're talking about is the crayfish, crawfish.
Crayfish.
And what happens in the spring and why red baits in the spring are so important. I have seen 100 YouTube videos on this lately, and quite honestly, I haven't seen one that got it right, in my opinion. So we're gonna come back and deal with this, and I'm gonna give you what I think is the answer to why red is so important in the spring. Doesn't matter where you are.
Okay.
Stick around. Welcome back to MFO, everybody. I'm Mark Fisher.
I'm Megan Fuller.
So before we get started, Megan, real quick, if we were kind of teasing around with other names. That's your job now, right now. Send us a comment with all the other synonyms for crayfish, crawfish, mud bugs. We want to flood our comments with different ways that you can say crawdad. Okay.
And also, please like the video. And if you haven't, please subscribe to our channel so we can keep
you
doing
can't
great
send
content.
us a synonym for crayfish unless you're a subscriber.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah, there's rules involved here.
Yeah.
All right, let's get back to what we were talking about.
Okay, let's do it.
I can't tell you that I have a definitive answer about what to call it, but I can give you what I think is a definitive answer about why red is so important in the springtime.
Okay.
So we're going to take this from a logical approach. And I've heard all sorts of things like, oh, the crayfish eats certain chemicals or certain colored things, and then it turns its body red. And so that's what, come on. What does a crayfish, crawfish, mudbug, whatever you want to call it, what does it do during the wintertime?
It hibernates.
Hibernates. So the important part about that is that it's not available to the bass. The bass goes for 2-3 months, depending on where you are,
Okay.
not seeing any of those crayfish, crawfish, mud bugs, okay? They're not around. And then all of a sudden, the water starts to warm and they start to come out of the mud and they become available, okay? Now think about this. Let's say that you happen to be out fishing and you beat them. You start throwing a red little bait, okay? And that's before the crayfish start coming out. Well, that bait is going to signal to the fish that haven't seen any red little crawfish swimming around, hey, they must be coming out.
Right, they're coming back.
Whether spring's coming, water's warming, there's one going now, and they're going to feed up on them because we know that crayfish are a major food source for bass, okay? They don't really, as long as it's some kind, it doesn't matter whether it's this kind of red or this kind of red, you know, orange, red, a little bit of both. It doesn't matter as long as it kind of gets close because they haven't seen any of it in the last 3 months. So they're just going red, boom,
Red.
Crayfish, got
Right.
it, okay? Now, as the real crayfish do start to come out of hibernation and they start to become more prevalent, now you're gonna need to match the hatch and get your colors, your red colors, your oranges, your maybe even oranges and greens closer to what's real and what's coming out in your lake, because now if you're throwing this color and the actual crayfish in the lake have more of a greenish tint to them or more of a brighter red kind of look, then you're going to look different and they're not going to bite it as well. But that's where that's coming from. Add to that the fact that the color red in and of itself is a color that scientists have determined that bass can distinguish. So now you have to, so in other words, when they see red, they are able to identify that as red. Now so they can also associate that then with, well, a crayfish is red, and we haven't seen crayfish in 3 months, and so therefore that must be a crayfish. Okay. The thing about, I guess I'm looking at this like, we can't give bass more credit than they deserve. Their brains are very tiny.
Right.
Okay. So they aren't going to be able to go, oh, that's red and that color's a little, but if they haven't seen it at all, the information about, hey, I eat crayfish and they haven't been around and now all of a sudden they're back, that they got that instinctually. They're not smart enough to go, well, that's orange and I only eat red crayfish because of the chemicals that were in the dirt or this or that. That's just not there.
So at the beginning of spring, at the early spring, you kind of have carte blanche on anything red, but as time goes on, you need to start being a bit more specific and picky about what you use.
And it's very simple to do that because in the spring, you're catching fish, you take a look at those fish and there are 9, well, out of 10 fish, you will probably catch 1 out of 10 that's got a crayfish sticking out of its mouth, where you'll be able to kind of look at that crayfish that hasn't been fully digested and see what color are the pinchers, what color is the body. All you got to do is go by the bank and turn over a couple of rocks, and you'll probably be able to find a couple of mud bugs. Okay, or some ditch bugs, and be able to kind of look at what color are those crayfish in your lake, and then use that to kind of match your baits to those colors. So guys, that's my theory on the red. I think I'm sticking to it until I hear something different.
Okay.
I hope you found this to be useful. Get out and throw some red crankbaits, some red baits in general, and it doesn't matter. Crankbaits, rattle traps, chatterbaits, whatever. If it's red and it kind of resembles a yabby, get out there and throw it. Guys, have a good evening. We'll talk to you again tomorrow. Take care.
Stay channeled.